Welcome. I'm Dan Knox and I'm a director at GRA Supply Chain Consulting. And today I'm going to take you through scenario planning. How can supply chains return to business as usual and better prepare for future challenges? Consumer behaviour can be hard to predict at times. A critical success factor to survival and success in both nature and business is the ability to learn and implement quickly, basically to adapt and evolve. By reducing the time it takes your business to know what's happening, learn what is needed for success, and implement, you can outpace competitors and capture new opportunities. Scenario planning is a structured what-if analysis of future internal and external operating environments. It enables proactive strategic, operational, and tactical adjustments to address potential issues and opportunities. It allows trade-offs between opportunities and risks, which are then analysed against given known constraints. Effective scenario planning can support rapid optimal decision-making and enables businesses to act swiftly and with confidence. Essentially, scenario planning enables organisations to turn unknowns into knowns and then assess options and act. So where's the industry at today? A recent survey conducted by GRA and the Australian Food and Grocery Council, AFGC, into the Australian food, drink and grocery manufacturing industry found that 89% of respondents identified they had a formal SNOP or IBP process in place. However, 60% of those identified that their capability with scenario planning was non-existent or insufficient. So this leads us to believe that the industry capability in scenario planning has not yet evolved out of our SNOP and IBP processes. Organisations are not fully prepared to manage shocks or changes to the business environment. So why hasn't the industry-wide scenario planning capability evolved? Well, building an effective scenario planning process definitely comes with some challenges. These often include establishing a discipline and trusting culture and the development of integrated planning and analysis frameworks so we can act with confidence. Sometimes, in the face of complexity, organisations oversimplify, which makes for costly assumptions. These oversimplification approaches can lead to loss of value in business results and also erode confidence in the organisation's ability around planning. These simplification techniques sometimes sit behind the scenes, deep within the ERP systems and other planning systems. And some examples of these common simplification techniques are things like systems for around demand planning. They might allocate top-down adjustments just via simple averaging, or another one might just be using simple forecasting, moving average algorithms rather than more best-of-breed advanced statistical techniques. In the way we set our safety stocks, sometimes we're using a blanket days of cover approach that doesn't consider costs, our service levels or demand variability within the calculation. Or we use simple replenishment methodologies like min-max or reorder point that just doesn't give us a forward visibility like time-phase replenishment planning can. So as a result of this ever-changing landscape, many businesses have begun to focus on establishing ready-to-access comprehensive information to help them understand the impacts that events have not only on their business but on their suppliers' business as well. This has driven to the emergence of control tower style operating models within many organisations. These structures enable senior leadership to consolidate relevant information from both internal operations and external environment to develop effective action plans. The OODA model is an iterative process in which observations are made to assess how effective the preceding actions and environmental changes are. It also helps guide future business plans. We're going to walk through the model in each step. However, just noting that all the activities really need to happen concurrently. The 4 steps are observe to survey the situation and form theories, orient, gather information and support theories, decide, develop the solutions to solve potential problems, and act and evaluate and implement those solutions. So we'll start with the act step. The act step should address immediate concerns relevant within, say, the next 4 weeks. It's all about how do we evaluate and implement our solutions. So what's our immediate concern? It's understanding our exposure. So to do this, we leverage our direct communication channels with our direct customers to determine their demand signals. We use market insights and external databases to estimate demand for our customers' customers. We can task our S&OP or planning team to build 3 to 6 month plans under a range of different demand scenarios to determine what we need to supply. We assess border closures or restrictions that will disrupt supply chains, especially around this COVID-19 situation. And it's also about working with your tier 1 suppliers to understand their supply chain risks throughout their tiers. Then we look to address those shortfalls. We identify alternate sources of supply if our supply is affected, and try to accelerate the exploration of options. Determine possible geographies and supply a shortlist in case where alternate supply is required. We want to identify ways to expedite and in-source for components where our supply is threatened. It's working with the authorities in certain areas where custom clearances could become a challenge. Also determining what portion of our supply can be swung to a different site if shutdown persists based on a different sourcing strategy, whether it's single, dual, multi. And we want to establish available logistics capacity. So pre-booking air flight or rail as required to limit our exposure. The next step is the decide step. This is focusing around the next 4 to 12 week time horizon. This is about what can be achieved in the next 3 months, where we develop solutions to solve potential problems. It's about improving our supply stability. So let's evaluate alternative sourcing options for all the materials impacted. It's enhancing the demand verification process to correct for bull style demand inflations. We want to provide continuous support for our mid-tier suppliers, our 2 to 3, our tier 2 and 3 suppliers who might be experiencing some financial troubles. And then we want to assess our regional risks for the current and backup suppliers. We plan our resilience. So we want to codify the processes and tools that we've created during these crisis management situation and formally document them, digitize the processes and tools and integrate them back into our demand, supply and capacity planning processes. If we have a war room, or could convert our war room into a more reliable supply chain risk management process, so it becomes a part of how we do business. We want to ensure stakeholders address vulnerabilities across all parts of the supply chain and trigger a new supply network designed around resilience. The Orient stage focuses on the next 12 to 24 week time horizon. This is about gathering assumptions to support theories. This is where we challenge assumptions around our operating model. So it's not just about our suppliers being local, it's about the suppliers and other suppliers, their suppliers. So let's look at redefining our operating model through the use of technology. It's restructuring our supply base to improve business continuity planning. Could be dual sourcing, localization, faster onboarding. It's developing a comprehensive category strategies with a focus on risk management and business continuity. It poses the questions like, has just-in-time had its time? Or how can we adapt and move to more sophisticated replenishment planning methodologies away from min-max and reorder point to time-phase replenishment planning that provide greater forward visibility? Can we afford to run as lean in the future? I know many organizations are beginning to rethink things like their packaging and holding strategies. And how well do we understand the tiers in our supply chain, our suppliers, their suppliers, and so on. And finally, we have the observe step. This examines issues across the 24-week horizon. So over the next 6-month horizon, we survey the situation and form theories. We have our current forecast and plans that we're going to execute to. This is about developing possible future paths that we want to analyse and assess. So we're investigating future events at an organisation, industry, global and international level. We explore how these events will impact our supply chain, everything from a supplier going into liquidation to perhaps another global pandemic. We identify the impacts, mitigations, as well as the opportunities to pivot and adapt. That's a summary of the OODA model. It's important to note that when developing scenario plans, it's essential these plans have clear trigger points and owners so we can execute them with clarity. So we need to establish and communicate these trigger points across the organisation so we know when a condition's hit, these are the actions we're going to take. The OODA model in some ways is very similar to a mature integrated business planning process where broad information is gathered in order to make effective decision making. I guess that's the vision of what our IBP, S&OP processes should ultimately be delivering against. The key ingredients to successful scenario planning are a strong foundation of effective culture and information to enable one version of the truth. Results from scenario planning are often lacking, as many organisations haven't yet created the single version of the truth in which trade-off analysis and results can be acted on with confidence. The most frequent issues we see are around disintegrated planning systems and poor cross-functional frameworks, like non-functional S&OP processes. There's no central way for management to make and assess a change to an upstream process and understand what the impact of a downstream process is. And scenarios we often see are created in isolated spreadsheets built independently with disintegrated information. And therefore, that means some of that times that information is out of date or it's not really accepted as the single version of the truth. So to get to one version of the truth, we need to have the right culture and reliable information. The right culture can be difficult to quantify. However, it should include strong trust, discipline, clarity, and commitment. For an excellent definition of trust, we recommend Brené Brown's braving model, which she articulated in her book, Becoming Who You Are. It's out in 2015. Of note, it's essential that your people have the capability and ownership and can speak the truth without fear or reprisal. Google calls this psychological safety, feeling safe to take risks and be vulnerable in front of others. In 2015, they conducted a study with over 180 Google teams over a 2-year period. They found 5 key team dynamics for successful teams, with psychological safety being far and away the most important of the 5 dynamics. If your company culture is such that mistakes are punished and freedom to experiment is curtailed, there'll be less opportunity for open-minded trade-off decisions to be assessed, let alone implemented. Roles, responsibilities, and accountabilities should be all clear to everyone. It's essential that the team's empowered, trusted, and accountable. An environment where what do we need to do now should be valued above who did something wrong. Disciplined processes and carefully considered KPIs can help drive the organisation in the right direction and also break down silos which can occur. Silos and KPI mismanagement can often lead to large hurdles in assessing and acting in scenario plans. Another pillar to enabling one version of the truth is having reliable information. Now, reliable information could involve AI, advanced planning systems, or it could just be a relatively simple Excel model. Simple is okay for some scenario planning tasks. The key is to have reliable, integrated information where it counts. At the end of the day, users must be able to quickly and reliably assess outcomes which deliver results and give the organisation confidence. Systems don't need to be perfect. Think roughly right versus precisely wrong. So some of the essentials in securing reliable information include having data integrated across all business functions, especially your financials. Data granularity needs to be applicable to the right business. So we want to have that bottom-up data, such as product by location or by customer. We want both data and systems to have clear owners and policies. Our systems and settings need to be configured specifically for the business and also be well understood. The organisation should also have confidence in its data accuracy. And the systems need to be easy to use and accessible so we can quickly and reliably assess outcomes. So we want to make sure the information is transparent and be able to be read across the organisation so it can be trusted. Having a strong culture and reliable information enable scenario planning to get to that one version of the truth. We want scenarios that we can repeat reliably and that their implications are well understood within the supply chain. Now, for example, let's say we've got a change to our store forecast in one of our stores and there's been a demand impact. Well, with our integrated systems and data approach, we would know that would then change instantly to an inventory, change our inventory balance. That would then trigger a change to our store replenishment. That will then roll up to a change in our DC purchasing requirements. This will then lead to a change in our projected on-hand and order profile that will then drive a change to our inventory investment. So you can see one small impact in one location can be very quickly rolled up and understood across the organisation. And we can model those. A company that does scenario planning really well is Simplot. Simplot's a leader in their S&OP process and as well as scenario planning. They're an Australian food manufacturer and you probably know their brands such as Bird's Eye, John West, Edgell. And they operate in a complex environment. Their customer value proposition is that they are Australian grown for many of their categories, which makes alternate sources of supply very hard to come by. They have a requirement to contract their growers out 2 years in advance. And also, being in the food industry, they're at the whim of weather and seasonal variabilities, understanding what can be grown. So a basic staple, if you look at a potato, they have to make very high cost trade-off decisions all the time. So a potato, when it's yielded out of the, harvested out of the ground, can have a yield of up to 80%. If you hold on to it for a short period of time, that yield drops to 60%. So decisions have to be quickly made in that environment. On the demand side, Simplot's customers expect consistent and excellent service. Their customers include quick service restaurants like McDonald's, as well as the large supermarket chains who have no tolerance for the service level failures. These supply constraints require Simplot to have an accurate 2-year forecast. And on top of their day-to-day, they're also still continuing to launch new categories and seek new customers and drive growth through the business. So Simplot has become very effective in navigating this complex and changing environment. And they do this through a strong supply chain scenario planning capability. How do they do it? Well, they've been running their disciplined S&OP process for well over 15 years, and they audit it regularly for improvement. Their business processes are all interconnected, and S&OP is the backbone of the organisation. They have the right culture, their roles and responsibilities are clearly defined, middle management is empowered and trusted. They have the ability to quickly mobilise teams to assess options and challenges, and they have high confidence in their ability to execute their outcomes based on their scenario planning capability, which gives them the strong capability to win work. They have reliable information. They have sophisticated and integrated systems where it counts, a tier 1 ERP and supply chain planning system that's well tuned for the business. Their data is granular and their costs are well understood. Their data accuracy is prioritised based on the inputs that drive their decisions. At Simplot, most of the scenario planning discussions are around financial outcomes, risks and opportunities. The plans are syndicated through the organisation, and their what-if analysis are employed to assess new capabilities or manage changes in demand and supply. They look at new supply contracts or customer contracts, and they assess options to close budgets. They have clear trigger points and have a high confidence in the potential outcomes. In a recent scenario, Simplot was tendering for an opportunity to win a frozen goods contract with a large supermarket retailer. When the offer was made on the table, Simplot was able to quickly establish a team to assess their ability to service that contract into the future. They looked at their options, they looked at all the customer impacts quickly and understood what was required to achieve it. They were able to respond swiftly and win the work, locking out the competitor in the process. But their scenario planning is not a silver bullet. Impacts still hit the business on the day-to-day. The difference is they see most of these issues coming and then have the time to be able to adapt and respond. Hard decisions still have to get made, but lessons are learned and their scenario planning is constantly evolving. Scenario planning yields significant benefits to many organisations. The ability to be able to make trade-off decisions like, is it worthwhile increasing our service level by 2% on A-class items? And what is the financial impact of that? Can determine, to be able to answer that with confidence provides maximum value to your organisation. It means that we can measure the impact of certain scenarios with a high level of confidence and enabling informed decision-making. Superior scenario planning has both top and bottom line benefits. Superior scenario management and decision-making typically yields revenue increases of up to 10%. Inventory management scenario planning will often yield 10 to 40% reductions in inventory holdings, freeing up cash. And we also see a 5 to 15% operating cost reductions, which are across both fixed and variable costs. Investing in scenario planning capability will often yield you at a minimum of 3 to 1 return, but often up to even to the range of a 10 to 1 return. So while scenario planning may be considered an emerging capability today, with only best-in-class organisations at the forefront, we expect to see this becoming more and more common, actually a necessity to survive. As we reflect on our learnings from COVID-19 and the shock felt by global supply chains, we anticipate that organisations are going to have an increased focus on strengthening their scenario planning capabilities, as well as embed greater resilience to their organisation. Corporate governance structures at the board level are likely to expect greater adaptability and contingency planning from their operational teams. And we're seeing government initiatives to help de-risk Australia's sovereign capability. Organisations embarking down scenario planning should do so with consideration that it can require significant commitment. Organisational transformation may be required to support it. The key is to establish the right culture and reliable information to enable one version of the truth. Globally, the way forward may be uncertain, but businesses can still take tangible steps today to improve their position and establish a capable scenario planning process. Thank you for watching this presentation. If you would like to explore further about how your organisation can develop its scenario planning capability, please reach out. We'd be more than happy to discuss how we can help you improve your scenario planning. Thank you.